Hello, everybody. I'm so glad you stopped back into the channel. I am here with my awesome friend Rachel and my new partner, my new partner in crime. We have just started a new weight loss, Christian women's weight loss program. It's called Feel Wonderful in Your Skin. And that's not exactly why I asked her on to be part of this video. I wanted to do a little series with her. We're talking about over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about how weight loss isn't just about you. And that isn't meant to be a judgment. It is meant to be a motivation. What Rachel and I both find is that a lot of people actually are more motivated by things outside of them than themselves. And so today we're just going to start off talking about how weight loss is more than just you and how it relates to your children. So, Rachel, I'd love for you to, and one more thing I just wanted to mention, we're totally doing this off the cuff. We haven't practiced anything. We have no questions ready. Rachel and I could sit and talk forever about these topics. And we thought it'd be super fun to be authentic and just have a conversation that you guys could just peek in on and listen to and see kind of what goes on in our heads after. Both Rachel and I have struggled with weight in the past, and see how our thinking has changed and evolved a little bit from where we used to be to where we are now. So with that, my first question to you, Rachel, is what first comes to mind when you think about being on a weight loss journey and how that applies to children?
So the very first thing that I think of when we talk about weight loss in kids is the way you approach it and the verbiage that you use. Because I think you and I can probably relate. When we were growing up, our parents kind of lived in that whole diet culture mentality where they were constantly on a diet, and constantly the words they use were, I've got to lose weight, or I'm on a diet, or constantly getting on the scale in front of us. And I remember, gosh, I don't even know how old I was the first time I stepped on a scale, and I didn't even know what the number was supposed to be.
Right.
But I remember thinking, well, I need to lose weight because that's what I'd heard.
Right.
Over
You
and
see a
over again.
scale and it's like, oh, people just say when they step on a scale, I need to lose weight. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Or, we go to the doctor, immediately they make you weigh. And then I remember, watching my mom not want to do it. So emotions being tied to the scale too. So my first thought, and let me just back up and say, not to make our parents wrong in this, they just, did what they had learned too. So, but I feel like, in this day and age, we have the ability to break that pattern and break that cycle. And so with the verbiage we use, I feel like instead of using that kind of negative verbiage, we have the chance and we have the opportunity to turn that around and use empowering verbiage with our kids, even with boys. I know we mostly think this is with girls, but it's with boys too. I have a son, I have a 3-year-old, and I am so very careful with how I word things with him. And we talk about how food is, medicine, or how it makes us feel good or it makes us feel bad. It's not bad, but it can make us feel bad.
Right.
And he understands, when he eats too much junk, if he's been somewhere at a, birthday party or something and he's had too much candy or cake or whatever, he understands that he doesn't feel as good as when he eats things like fruits and vegetables. And we talk about how vegetables makes him big and strong. And so it's with the words you use. I think that's what is most important.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you there. The other thing, I know more women are trying to be careful about is the word fat. I feel fat or I look fat. Right. And exactly, more than just girls, we also have to be careful of what we're saying in front of our boys because they pick that up too. And I love how you really, pinpointed how we tie certain thoughts to a scale from like very young, very, very young. And I remember like my mom being on a diet, and that was the first time I ever like looked at my mom differently, like looked at her as someone that was overweight. Like it didn't even cross my mind before then. And so I really want to challenge, a lot of the women out there that your kids may not even see it. They may not
Oh,
even
100%.
recognize it. That you're just their mom. And
Yeah.
why even bring that to their attention? So yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's really important that we are talking food is fuel for our bodies. Food is medicine for our bodies. Food, while we can have things that aren't so like don't make our bodies feel that great, we can have that. It's not sinful to have that. We just want to limit that because our body is a gift from God, and let's partner with it. Let's try to support it and encourage it and help it along. I want to know your thoughts on this, okay? Because this just kind of came to mind. So you and I both like love macros, and we think it's really a healthy way to look at food, and especially if you're a person that kind of likes numbers and goals, macros is the best way, I think, to do that. And it's one of those things that you can just do for a short time, learn how to like look at your food and then be able to give it up and just eat healthy after that.
Right.
But one thing I recommend my clients do when they're starting macros is to get a food scale, because it's kind of crazy sometimes. What you think is like a cup of something isn't really a cup when you actually measure it on a food scale, which is much more accurate. And so my kids have seen me measure food and have asked me, Mom, why are you measuring your food like that? Because it is kind of strange. I want to know your response first, and then I'll tell my response.
Yeah. So I haven't had to deal with that yet because Grayson's only 3.
Yeah.
But I have thought about that, because there are seasons I go through where I track a little bit more carefully than others. And side note, most of the time I do this because I'm not eating enough and I can tell I'm not eating enough.
Right.
So
Yes,
I go back to
exactly.
tracking.
Yep.
Yeah. I go back to tracking to make sure I'm eating enough food. So there are times when I track a little bit more carefully than others. And I've had to kind of retrain how I think about it too, because old patterns are, I can only have so much. But retraining that verbiage, I've thought about that and how I will approach that when that comes up is kind of taking it into the whole like moderation perspective. Like we can have anything, but um, is it in service to us to have this much of it? We may want it, but is it in this service? And also tying it into like the self-control piece. And you and I have had a lot of conversations about how that is a fruit of the spirit, and so you can tie that back to scripture and tie that back, because I feel like a lot of times we kind of miss the mark on that at church. And miss the mark on how gluttony is in fact a sin. So when we overeat, we are sinning. We can have, like you said, we can have anything we want, but we can eat more than we need to of healthy food, right?
Yeah.
So kind of talking to Grayson about fueling our body and how, we need fuel in certain amounts. Like if you overfill a gas tank, that's not in service to the car, right? Like
Right.
you're spending way too much money because it's not going in your gas tank. It's not
No.
in service. It's just excess. So kind of talking to him about how fuel is the same for your body. We don't need it in excess. We need just the right amount.
Yeah. Yeah. And so a couple of things I want to mention that you said, yeah, the whole gluttony part, it's when we start making that food our idol. Like the food is when we're running to that, when we're having these emotions, when we're stressed, when we're upset. that is where we really have to check ourselves. That isn't the purpose of food.
Right.
We're supposed to be running to God at those points. And
Yes.
it's I don't want anybody to start judging themselves now and like beating themselves up because that's what they're doing. A lot of us do that.
Yeah.
Let's learn how to not do that, right? How do
Yeah.
we not turn to food, instead turn to, Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior that wants to be there, that is our Savior, that does redeem us, that is like our comforter. Let's go to Him
Yeah.
instead of food. The other thing I kind of lost my train of thought. I can't remember the other thing I was gonna say about that. Oh, what I say to my kids, like, a big thing I tell them is, hey, there are certain times when we're working on certain goals, because that's the only time I use my food scale now, is when
Mhm.
I'm working towards a goal. Like we've talked about how you're trying to build muscle, I'm trying to build muscle,
Yeah.
and I need to eat more, which
Yeah.
is actually kind of hard. And so I have had this conversation that it's amazing what food does to our bodies. And we have so much science and information now that we can actually like make it really precise so we can, gain muscle and not
Mhm.
gain a whole bunch of fat if I'm really paying attention. And
Yeah.
and I tell them too, I like to kind of experiment with my body in a healthy way.
Right.
Because honestly, one thing I want to let people really know is you and we had to experiment a little bit to understand what worked well for the unique body that God gave us. And even our clients, that's what we do. We have to be willing to try a couple of different things because not everybody is made exactly the same. And I want my kids to know that too. Like just because your friend is eating a certain thing and does it, you know, has a certain way of maybe losing weight or taking care of their body, doesn't
Mhm.
mean that that's the way it's going to work for you,
Yeah.
having that flexibility in that thinking.
Yeah.
Um,
That ties into like food allergies and intolerances too, because my son has an egg allergy. So he can't eat the same as everybody else. And I'm really glad that we kind of transitioned a little bit over this way because we've had to have conversations with him about food in this way, like how this food doesn't make you feel good, it makes you sick.
right.
And but not making it scary.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and that's where we can kind of tie in like body image and things with that too, like not being so fearful about it, not making it scary, but just making it part of life. Like now we, tell him, "Oh, that's got egg in it," and he just doesn't bat an eye and just walks away.
Yeah.
Because he understands that food is fuel. That's all it is. He has such a good relationship with food that it may look good, but if he knows it's going to make him feel bad, he doesn't even want it anymore.
Yeah.
And kind of just reframing the way we think about things. And I love what you said about having different goals with your body. Like, I think it's so important to teach little girls that there's not a one size fits all.
Mm-mm.
There's not like we used to have like the Barbie image, like you're supposed to look like that. And I love, love, love that we are teaching girls how to be strong now, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And build muscle. And I don't want people to see exercise as punishment anymore.
No. Yes. Enough of that.
Yes, right? Like every morning, because I have such an early riser. Grayson's up at like 6 o'clock every morning. So I don't get finished with my workout before he wakes up. But I actually think that's good.
Yeah.
Like he
I
can
think it's
come
really good.
down.
Hmm.
Yeah, right? He can come down and watch me and
Yep.
knows that that's part of my routine. Like I go up and get him and I'm still in my, workout clothes and he'll say, "Mama, are you exercising?" And I'll say, "Yes, baby, I'm exercising." And he'll come down and sometimes he'll help me, he'll work out with
Yes.
me and sometimes he won't. But he sees me do that and he sees
Exactly.
me do that not as a punishment, but as, just part of my routine
Hmm.
and part of taking care of my body, just like we eat healthy. And like we talked about in the beginning, it's just reframing, right? And just using different verbiage and using different body language when we talk about things and just reframing the thoughts about it.
Yeah, that's a big thing for me too, because I tell my kids, they see me exercise, not all the time, because I'm like you, I do it early in the morning.
Mhm.
But they also hear me talk about it. And I feel so good when I do this.
Yeah.
I love how it makes my body feel and my mind clear, that's why I keep doing it. It's never tied to weight loss. It's always I'm building strength or I want to feel really good for the day. And
Yeah.
now my kids love it. Like they come in, we have a set of weights and they'll do their own things. And
Yeah.
it's a beautiful journey. And that's kind of what I wanted. I really want to wrap up today with what are some things that I know you kind of lost the weight before you had Grayson. I lost the weight while I had my kids. But maybe even some of your clients, have you seen any changes like as they're going on this weight loss journey? Why is it about more than just them and their weight loss journey? Why is it so important, like as motivation and fuel to keep going for us to be thinking about that?
Yeah. Um, this is gonna sound really bold, but I think it needs to be said. Like, if you if you are not teaching your kids about healthy habits and you are not talking to them about having a good relationship or not even having a relationship with food, like it just using food as fuel and setting that example for them, you're being selfish.
Yeah,
You really are. It's not just about you. It's not just about you. It is about setting them up for success because you not teaching them those healthy habits, they're going to grow up and probably have health issues in the future,
mm-hmm.
whether that be being overweight or whether that be having high cholesterol, diabetes, high blood pressure. Like you not teaching them and giving them the knowledge to live a healthy life, like that's our responsibility as parents. We can't leave it up to the schools to do it. Can't leave it up to anybody else to do it. That's our responsibility as parents. So once you have the knowledge to do it, you need to pass that on to your kids because
Agreed.
if you don't, then that's on you.
So I'm looking up a verse because I know I'm going to do it wrong or say it wrong. Um,
Mhm.
uh, so just give me 1 second.
Yeah. Well, while
Um,
you're looking that up,
yeah, keep
I'll
going.
kind of talk about, a lot of times we as women, we like to mom shame. And a lot of times it's because we are jealous or we are judgmental or whatever the case may be. But I mean, I've had people say to me about exercise and things like that. And that's not selfish at all. It is so important to, to pour into yourself, learn as much as you can about becoming healthy and fueling your body properly and treating it as the temple that it was designed to be, and then pass that on to
Mm-hmm.
your kids.
Yeah. 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 And, instead of being jealous, let's just recognize that emotion that we're having and
Yeah.
realize that's just something we want. And
Yeah.
then find a way to get it. Right.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
truly believe, this is one thing I teach my clients is emotions are there as signals. Jealousy, now, like that, the the thought that leads to jealousy, that thought isn't from God because it's not uh,
Right.
uh, an emotion that brings life, but that that signal was there to help us recognize that thought, right? And so I think God gave us that signal of jealousy in our body so that we're like, hey, okay, I'm jealous. Why am I jealous? Well, maybe because
Mhm.
I really want to feel good myself. Like I really want
Yeah.
to set this example myself.
Yeah.
And to use that as then fuel to actually go and fuel and awareness to go and then figure out how to get that.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
so I found the verse I was looking for. It's in Deuteronomy, chapter 30, verse 19, and it says, "Today I've given you the choice between life and death, between blessings and curses. Now I call on heaven and earth to witness the choice you make. Oh, that you may choose life so that you and your descendants might live. And I
Yes.
love this verse. I go back to it often, even just thinking about my kids, because the choices I make today in not just weight loss, but in every realm affects my children.
Yes.
Even when I don't think they do, they do. Because the choices I make also affect me and my emotions, which then affect my children. And so I really always I think about this. The piece I could remember is, oh, that you choose life. Are we choosing life? Are we choosing, and I like to use, are we choosing love and life?
Yeah.
That's where God is in. That's the piece that he's in. And I want to be choosing more love and life so that my descendants may live, that my children may live in love and life. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just want people to know that you don't need to judge yourself. You don't need to beat yourself up if you're not doing that right now. But let's figure out how to do that. Let's figure out how to do that for our kids. And I have to say, on my weight loss journey, that was a big motivator for me. I want to figure this out so that I can be that example for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am their mother, and I'm one of the biggest influences on their lives, and I want to be the best influence I can be. And that really gave me a lot of fuel, a lot of motivation to keep trying and keep working. And the beautiful thing about that is, we talked about our language. It made me then change the language in my head and how I was talking to myself, because I didn't want it to come out talking to them.
Yeah.
And when I could start doing that, if I can apply this to myself, it's so much easier to apply it then to our kids. And that's the beautiful thing about our weight loss journey. If we're really being intentional about how we're losing weight and how we're thinking about it and what we're doing, then that intentionality gets to be rubbed off on our children and just gets to be a huge blessing to them.
100%.
Yeah.
And like you said, how we're feeling about ourselves spills over to our kids, right? And if we are overweight and self-conscious and depressed about how we look, tie that back to, you didn't see your mom as overweight until she went on a diet, right?
Yeah.
Like there's so many of us that won't wear the swimsuit in the pool with our kids when really they don't care what we look like. They just want us to play in the pool,
Exactly. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So if we are sad and depressed about ourselves, all they're going to remember is how mom was sad and depressed. They're not going to remember having a happy mom that would get in the pool and play,
Okay.
So it's about way more than looks. It's about life, just like you said, and living a life full of love that you can pass on to your kids and be that example, in a good way, not in a bad way. Like we're the mom that they didn't want to be when they grew up, like we want to set that loving example. And one of the best ways we can love ourselves is to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. And I truly believe that God places that desire on our heart to take care of ourselves. And then Satan likes to twist it and make it complicated and frustrating.
Mhm.
And that's one thing we've
Yes.
talked a lot about. This is one thing Rachel and I coach a lot about, is let's make it simple, because God's in the simple and he's in the loving, and we don't need to make it hard and confusing. Weight loss really can be a lot easier than you think.
Yeah.
If we kind of slow down, take our time, be more intentional, and learn as we're walking through it. So is there anything last comments you want to make on this one?
Just that, it really is about more than just us. And that's one of my biggest passions. Especially, since having a son of my own, is just being super intentional about the reasons. And, when I was in my 20s, it was about vanity. I mean, let's be honest. Like I wanted to be skinny. I wanted to look good. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like
No,
there's nothing
no.
wrong with wanting to look good. But as I got older and became a mom, it really did, like the Lord just showed me, like it's about more, your body is a temple and so is your family. Your
Yeah.
family bodies are temples too. And, one of my biggest things that I coach on is treating your body as a temple it was meant to be so you can go out and fulfill your greater purpose.
Yeah.
And we can't fulfill our greater purpose that the Lord's called us to do, to the greatest extent if our body is not well taken care of. And, you instilling that in your kids and helping them to take care of their bodies so they can go fulfill their greater purpose because your kids have such a great purpose.
Yep.
God put them here for such a specific reason. And, He has placed a calling and a desire in their heart that they get to go and do one day. But they can't go do that if, they are not well taken care of and they don't have a healthy temple. So I mean, we as moms, we have so many responsibilities, but I feel like
Yeah.
this is one of them that is just so, so important.
Yeah. And my last comment to that is, you know, that's what I talk about a lot too. How do you um, use your temple to then impact, make a greater impact on this
Mhm.
world?
Mhm.
Um, and one of those things, if you're a mom, one of your purposes is to lead your children, to be an example for your
Yeah.
children. And
Yeah.
how can you be a more impactful example for them in the most beautiful way? Like,
Yeah.
again, one thing I find, this is why I'm reiterating this, is we just want to pile on so much judgment on ourselves as mothers. And let's actually like twist that around, because I truly believe that's the enemy trying to keep us stuck. Let's twist that
Oh,
around
yeah.
and instead make it fuel, motivation to change. Let's not judge
Yeah.
ourselves and beat ourselves up. Let's just use it as fuel and change. Well, Rita,
I
I'm
love
so excited for our next talk.
it.
And we'll leave them in suspense. We have a couple ideas of other things that we're going to talk about, but we don't know which one we're going to do next. So make sure you tune in next time as we talk about one of the other ways in which it's more than just you, and how to use other outside sources as motivation to really walk this weight loss journey and keep going, keep following through. All right, Rachel, until next time.
Till
Bye,
next time.
everybody.